Hey students, to start the day today, we would like you to do a brief activity as a class. So what we'd like you to do is remember the 7 characteristics of a civilization. Do you guys remember what the 7 characteristics of a civilization are? If you do, go ahead and pause this video and we want you to write all 7 on the whiteboard, okay? Go ahead and do that now.
Thank you guys for jumping up to the board and taking the time to recap and remember those 7 characteristics. So hopefully on the board right now you have these characteristics. If you don't, go ahead and erase and add them to the board. So you should have specialization. I'm not even going to say what they are because that's kind of the project that you're doing next. So I'm not even going to get into the explanations again. So specialization, cities, social system, kind of think of that triangle. Complex technology, which we might be thinking of phones and computers, but you're in ancient times, so we're taking it back. Religion, government and law, and then writing. So hopefully you have all of those. If you don't, pause, fix up your list on the board, and fix those up. Thank you.
All right, now we're going to apply those 7 characteristics to ancient Egypt. We are jumping into chapter 3, section 3, and that next section is about Egypt, okay? So you are going to be doing a group project to really dive into what ancient Egypt was like and study these 7 characteristics. So, as you can see in the agenda today, you have an ancient Egypt project overview. That's this video right here. So if you ever have any questions on the directions, you come back to this video, skip through, find what you need, okay? There are 2 links below. The first one is the directions to the Ancient Egypt project, and that's the document that we're going through with you right now. It is just a 1-page directions. You can make a copy of this and save it to your Google Drive, and you will need to do that at some point today. You will not find this in Google Classroom. You need to use this link in the lesson to make a copy for your group. There's also right here an example Ancient Egypt project. Again, this is where you find the example. If you need to look back, if you have any questions on clarification, there's a little example here. It's not much, but it kind of gives you a standard for what we're looking for. And that, again, is only going to be found right here. All right. So this is where you're finding your information for today. You're making a copy of the directions for your own use with your group. So let's jump to the directions now. If you're following along, you can click that link. Teachers, you can pause the video if you want students to go ahead and click that link along with us. So here's your title, Ancient Egypt, 7 characteristics of a civilization. Here is where you're listing the people in your group. And your teacher is going to be assigning your group. If you have 5 people, that's fine. Add number 5 there. It might shake out to be one group has more than 4. That's okay. This is where you're listing your group. This is why you're saving your own copy. As you can see below that, here is your task. So using notes and research, you will create an interesting and informative presentation using Google Slides to teach the characteristics of ancient Egypt. This is a project grade, so a test grade. Using research, you will work as a team to learn about the characteristics of ancient Egypt. Your presentation must include the following. So, as you notice, you are using Google Slides to teach the characteristics of ancient Egypt. So we want you to pretend like you're teaching your class almost what is ancient Egypt about. You're not actually going to be presenting. Don't worry about it. You're not going to be giving a presentation. We know you're going to be fine with that. But that is your mentality, okay? So now we're going to go through what your presentation must include.
Okay, boys and girls, so probably no surprise, right? You need to have a title slide. We need to know what we're talking about because you're presenting or like we said, the premise of presenting. So you need a title page and you need to highlight the people that you're working with and that are working together. So you are bragging that you are making this awesome presentation. So you need your names on that first slide. One slide, title. Okay, moving now, this is the guts of your presentation. This is the good part that we love to listen to and watch and see. So you are going to, for every characteristic that you just listed on the board, so and they're listed on this document as well: specialization, city, social system, complex technology, religion, government law, and writing. For each one of those characteristics, you need 2 slides. On those 2 slides, you need to include, and you see this in 1 and 2, general explanation of the characteristic. What does specialization mean? You need to describe it, talk about it, give information. Then you need to give a modern day example of, for example, specialization. What does that mean in our times right now? In 2021, what is specialization? The other things you need to include are, you see a number 2 example, you need to relate this to ancient Egypt. So you need to think of specialization in terms of ancient Egypt. So you need to go back, you need to look at your notes, and you will need to make some connections with ancient Egypt. Then you need to make sure you have some examples and facts about ancient Egypt relating to each one of the characteristics. So that is what those 2 slides per characteristic should entail. We'll give you an example in a minute, but the way you break that down is kind of up to you, but you just need to include all of that information. And of course, it is boring unless you have some type of picture. So you'll notice the last thing, number 3 under this section, is to have some pictures. At least 1 up to 5. If you have more than 5, it gets kind of busy, but certainly depending on what characteristic you're on, having 1 to 5 pictures would be great. Then, as always, in any type of presentation, you need to conclude. You need to wrap up. You just need to say, we're done now. We've given you all the information we have. We've taught you everything we know, and here's a wrap up. In that wrap up slide, will you please make sure to include your sources? We're going to give you some example places to start, and that's fine, but you need to copy and paste those links into your sources, and then if you go rogue from there, you definitely need to include that as well, please. So that's a brief overview of your project, where you'll have 1 slide for a title, then you'll have 2 slides per characteristic, okay? So 2 for each one that details different things. The explanation for the characteristic with a modern example, and then how it applies to ancient Egypt. And then you're going to also include some pictures and then wrap it all up. So
Great.
Now we want to give you an example.
So let's jump over to one example, and this is very brief, but here's a title slide. So it's over here. Ancient Egypt, okay, very nice graphic. Everyone's names are neat at the bottom. We know exactly who was in this presentation together. Then we have their specialization slide. So this is one of the characteristics. You're doing all 7 as a group, okay? But here's one example, specialization. So here's their general explanation. Here's their modern day example down here in this box. And then if we look over here, examples from ancient Egypt. So they have pharaohs, and then some facts, some information. Pharaohs were in charge of the laws, the taxes, the defense, highest priest, right? Artisans, they crafted things by hand. They make art. Artifacts. If you find an artifact from ancient Egypt, an artisan probably made it. Priests, they were in charge of feeding the gods, mummifying the dead, performed rituals. So this is all has to do with specialization. Doesn't it sound so interesting? Are you guys excited to jump into ancient Egypt? It's one of my favorite things to study. And then their second slide, they decided to do all their pictures on slide 2, which is fine. You don't have to do that. You can mix it up however you want. But they have a picture of artisans here making some stuff. They have priest and then the pharaoh, okay? So it's colorful, it's clear. And then at the bottom of each slide, which I deleted their names out, but they wrote their name at the bottom so that we know exactly who did it. So if I did this slide, I would write Miss Richards down here. So when I know my teacher is grading, then they know who did it, right? So that is a brief overview of the example. You can use this in your own time.
Boys and girls, please do not feel like your setup has to be like this. We wanted to give you something to go off of, so we pulled another groups from past years. But you have your own creativity. You have your own ideas. You're going to be working with other people that say, no, we should have it like this, or let's make more of sentences. Let's get more depth into this part. You are not limited to holding you to this exact example, but it certainly can help you get started. So keep that in mind. It does not have to mimic this exactly. It's just, this is one way of doing it.
All right, if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and make your groups, and that can be done however your crew sees is best, and then add those group names into your directions, at the top right here, okay?